Welcome once again. People living with albinism in Uganda have called upon the government to review the Witchcraft Act of 1957 to address issues of their safety and security. The executive director of Albinism Umbrella, Ms. Oliva Namutebi, said the act is outdated and needs to be amended so that those who kill people living with albinism for rituals face harsh punishments. Remember that on the 3rd of December, the union's vice president, Ms. Jessica Lupo, launched a 5-year national action plan for persons living with albinism during the commemoration of the International Day of Persons with Disabilities in Kole district.
According to Uganda's Minister of Gender, Labour and Social Development, Ms. Betty Amongi, the adoption of the 5-year national action plan for persons living with albinism is a clear sign that the government is committed to promoting and protecting the human rights of persons living with albinism. Joining us this morning is Peter Ogek. He is the co-founder and executive director of the Source of the Nile Union of Persons with Albinism, a disability rights non-governmental organization in Uganda for persons living with albinism. He's one of the board of directors on the National Union of Disabled Persons of Uganda, NUDIPU. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. And let's get into the question. And it's a very important question that we are having. And I'd like to start on a personal note. As a person living with albinism, talk to us about the realities of these challenges. The world is talking about it, we're talking about it, but you are experiencing and living that reality. So talk to us about how important this is and what your experience is like.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a great pleasure to be joining you this morning, and lovely greetings from Uganda. Yeah, living with albinism, let me say it's something that our continent has not yet adopted so much. Leaving those with a condition, living in agony and misery life. When I'm personally to give a story, it wasn't easy for me to strive to reach where I am as a person with albinism. I survived kidnap 3 times. People wanted to kill me, thinking that maybe the body parts would bring wealth to them. And this is, of course, as you know, that it's not only in Uganda, but even neighboring countries, including Tanzania, Malawi, Zambia, and many other African continents with that kind of weird behaviors. So you find many have lived this kind of life. And there are lots of misperception regarding to the condition. And that's why we are trying to hold governments, African government accountable, to have a strong regulations and a strong laws that would prohibit those kind of unhuman, so that we may live at peace and enjoy our country just like anyone else. Being white doesn't need to deny us to be Africans. We are proud Africans, even when we are in different colors. So this is what we want to say. And just as you read in that article, many of our kind live in fear. Many of our kind, they don't trust anyone because they don't know who is the enemy who may be affect them. As an activist in Uganda, I travel the entire country trying to advocate, try to create awareness. But there is a place where I reach and I got to be informed that they got a child who was, they were trying to save off the air, and when they took this test, the police didn't have even the kind of law to address this issue. And for this reason, that's why you said that now the parent laws or the current laws that we do have, they're not strong enough. In addition to that, Uganda is a peace-loving country, and we host a lot of refugees. And some of these refugees come with a lot of backgrounds, from different countries. So you find that if we don't have strong laws, this may put our lives on so vulnerable against those kind of unhuman acts. In addition to that, when you try to see that, some of these cases when presented to police, they're so polite and they don't hold the perpetrators accountable, which brings us to live in fear and thinking that anytime we may be taken away by perpetrators. We've seen many girls and women who have been raped and being abused just because of the misperceptions tied to albinism. So we think this is the time to strengthen that law. I know there are very many laws, but if we don't have specific law or amend that one with strong regulations on them, I think we may not be at peace.
Well, I think we'll first of all also just say we're sorry for your experience, and of course for the experience of others living with albinism in Uganda. Heartbreaking to still read or hear these things in 2022. But of course, we hope for better outcomes and better reactions to people living with albinism. The Ugandan government did, of course, declare or recognize albinism as a disability in 2020. Has anything changed since then? Has there been any improvement with the government's reaction to people living with albinism?
Yeah, thank you so much for that question. Yeah, we appreciate the government that according to the Disability Act 2020, albinism was mentioned among the disabilities that we do have in Uganda. And following that, this year still, they launched the National Action Plan. But all these are still in papers. There's no framework yet to help, the implementation of all this, and we pray that maybe doesn't remain into cupboard. However, some officers that are so willing to work and support with us, like the first Deputy Prime Minister, you find that he supported, he's doing so much what he can, and through her, they waived off the taxes on sunscreen lotions. As you may know that many African countries, they don't produce sunscreen lotion. So we are seeing that that willingness to change and support a person with albinism, but at times we feel that it's at low pace. And if you don't try to look so much, you may not see a greater change. So what we pray that, yes, we appreciate them for adopting persons with albinism as people with disabilities. And we pray that they should also put different framework that would help the implementation of these laws. Because as I speak, there are some persons with albinism who are still abused. So without a framework, still you find that the police will say, yeah, okay, there is a law, but I don't know now what I should do. I don't know the punishment that this person should do or should get. So that's also another pillar. Okay, thank you for the thank you for the National Action Plan. Thank you for the adoption of persons with albinism among persons with disabilities. But we need to see what rules or laws or regulations that will help them to yield their well-being as anyone else.
Now let's talk about what you're experiencing in Uganda is not just your reality, it's a shared reality across the continent. Thousands of people living with albinism, and unfortunately, they've asked for the protection of the government. And now we've been able to have conversations this morning about some of the myths surrounding people living with albinism. Let's talk about how we can improve the lives of people in this category. What are some of the things that you think can be done to help make life better, help make the quality of life better for people living with albinism, not just in Uganda where you are, but around the continent?
Oh, thank you so much. And by that, on this note, also I need to thank African Union. Through it, we came up with African National Plan on Albinism, whereby different countries in Africa, they committed themselves to do something on the well-being of persons with albinism. So my argument is, all right, we need each and every country in Africa to come up with the National Action Plan. And if they come up with these National Action Plans, they should also make sure that they do not only remain in papers, but also in application. We need to see that people with albinism enjoy their rights each and everywhere, wherever they are. Then also, this still to the countrymen or everywhere, wherever in Africa, we need them to realize and understand that we persons with albinism, we are people just like anyone else. We need that full inclusion. We need that full participation. We need to be included in each and everything. We would love African government to provide sunscreen lotions in hospitals so that we can get these assistive devices, because without assistance conversions, I won't be even productive to my country. So how I wish that all African nations, they can do this. As you may know that African countries, we have a lot of sun. So without the sun protection, it will increase the level of skin cancer among persons with albinism, and which will make them non-productive and felt like the beggars or people who need to be just served. And yet when these are given, it will help them to be self-sustainable. Then another thing, we need the government to come up with a good plan to support the education of persons with albinism. As you may know, just an example of Uganda, we found that many didn't go to school because of many misperceptions and misconceptions attached to the condition, thinking that we're not human enough, we're not people enough to get education, we're not people enough to get anything, you know. And yet, right now, through striving, we're trying to show them that we can study and attend any kind of discipline. We're seeing now lawyers with albinism. We're seeing doctors with albinism, engineers. So we need to see more of this. And this will be one of the ways to prove to people that, yeah, we are part of the contribution to our continent. And if we're left behind, that means that we won't grow up together, we won't develop together as persons with albinism who are African.
Well, thank you so much for joining us this morning. The message, of course, is for more inclusion for persons living with albinism in Uganda and, of course, across the continent, and a complete end. You know, it's heartbreaking to still be hearing about witchcraft and attacks, against people living with albinism in parts of the continent. Really, really heartbreaking. So, of course, we'll continue to have these conversations and, see that there is a change as quickly as possible. Thank you very much for joining us this morning.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure to be speaking to you and the entire world.
Absolutely.